Oh man, Ezreal ban right away from TSM as well. So we need to see kind of the strategy these teams take against each other, because CLG in the past when they've been taking out TSM has oftentimes actually just given Reginald what he wants, or what he's kind of baited into picking. So they've had a game where Reginald had Karthus. Reginald was actually pretty successful, but CLG, that was the crazy MLG game where they had the Nien triple kill in the base. They've given him TF one time, and then the other time they didn't even want him to take it away. Whereas Link is one of the best TF players, probably the best TF player in all of North America. Yep. There's a lot of things that are going about, but right now it looks like they're just going for double lift.
With the bans, like you said, going for double lift, trying to take him out, we've seen CLG kind of back and forth between a let's get double lift farm and farm, but protect him, or let's have him split push. And they've been wavering between those two strategies throughout the summer split.
Yeah, it's strange because a lot has changed at the same time of not much changing since they picked up Monte Cristo as an analyst, because they want to adopt a lot of these new things and kind of break old habits. Right. But at the same time, I think CLG recognizes that they don't have time for that. So they've kind of went back to some of their old tendencies, and they still run double lift as the main threat. Link is a supporting threat. In the end, kind of in and around there, but it's still the same CLG style and the same CLG champions that we've been seeing.
Twisted Fate left open. Definitely means objectives won't really come as soon. That laning phase will be a little bit longer. We don't have the globals to come out. You don't?
I don't know if Reginald would take it for sure.
Ari has been very high in the pick list lately.
Yeah, well, that's why they had to ban that away. And I think even so, if CLG has second pick, especially against TSM, they want Reginald to play Twisted Fate because they have confidence that they can disrupt him enough and mess up his decisions. Think about what's on the board right now. We have Nocturne on the board and TF on the board. All 4 games, Big Fat LP played that. Odd One has been playing it fairly frequently as well. But because the bans were so targeted already, Jarvan's up. All those other things that have been very priority picks throughout this entire season. So what's going to happen with these 2 picks is CLG's really going to tell us what their plan is for the rest of this pick ban phase.
Looks like they are hovering. We have the Sona going in for Xpecial. His Sona was played all throughout the summer split, obviously. And we are seeing what they could choose. So CLG is going to be having a little bit of fun as they wait to hover over and lock in.
Well, they haven't played in front of a crowd for a while, if you think about it. You got to have a little bit of fun with it. But those are not real. Maybe
are not
Fizz.
Real.
Yeah.
We'll have to see where Rumble goes here. Rumble got left open. It was actually shown there, so it's known there. Dyrus actually playing Rumble. At the end of the summer split, he did really well on it. But his first 2 attempts were losses on Rumble until Balls kind of showed him the way.
Exactly. Really, Balls and Dyrus are 2 of the remaining Rumble players. He's lost a lot of steam since the set of Nurse, but there's still definitely Dyrus and Balls who can have success on him. And I don't know if he's going to pick that straight into a blind matchup, knowing Nien actually does, even though Nien is new to top lane, Nien has a very diverse champion pool. But just to go back to those 2 CLG picks with Orianna and Nocturne, I mean, we talked, those are standard CLG picks. Link and Orianna are very CLG style champion right there. When you just say, yeah, of course, Orianna's a CLG thing. They can protect double lift as well as have that strong team fight initiation when they want to.
And like you said before, the way Big Fat LP uses the quasi-global ultimate, it actually becomes global because he uses it to deny visions in high-intensity situations.
Yeah, and you called it right there. The Rumble pick from Dyrus locked it in even before they'd have a chance to know what they're going up against. Elise for the Odd One as well, which is something he played a ton of at the start of the split. He was spamming solo queue with it between the break, got Challenger for the first time, then kind of had mixed success with it throughout the entire split. But he's back on it again despite the nerfs because this is the opportunity for him to shine.
Have to see what Counterlogic Gaming comes into play with here. Double Lift been playing a few things of his own. His Ezreal, he brought over to Twitch. He played a little bit of Tristana towards the end of the split there. It didn't work out for him because they got so picked and banned out. Everybody's saying, just get Double Lift out of here. So what will he pick? They actually may leave this to last.
Yeah, exactly, because they've already said, get Double Lift out of here. They clearly thought Ezreal and Tristana were his 2 most threatening champions. I'd say Caitlyn would be number 3, but this would be CLG practice.
That's big.
Everyone else has been doing it. Why aren't Double Lift and Chalice Zyra Ashe? This is something they have not played before in competitive play.
The thing I like about that is when you do split up the lanes, it's still a really good lane. So when you have it together, it's like an absolute powerhouse. And we, Cloud9 and a bunch of other people that bring that out into the summer split. I hope it works out for him here because it's not a lane that just works.
This gets really, really cool now. The fact that we have Ashe, Zyra on CLG. Ashe is not typically your hyper carry until it gets extremely late into the game. We're talking 50 minutes, full item Ashe. At this point, Doublelift has to work his... I really want to see Doublelift Ash here because he doesn't seem like the type to be the initiator or the one who has to prime the arrows and catch people out of position and use the map necessarily. Doublelift generally just is in his own world and he gets by on his mechanics. So him coming out with Ash right here is incredibly bold by CLG to pick against TSM.
And it's super utility. He's running complete lifesteal on everything. So he's not even looking to be that damage for his team. He wants to lock it up, and I think they're going to let Nien and Link carry this one more or less.
They're going to have to. I mean, knowing what TSM has picked right here, absurd amounts of damage. Absurd amounts of damage with the Twitch already, but CLG is just locked in with even more utility.
Wow.
No one on this team necessarily has carry level damage for CLG. They have to work in consort with each other and just make sure they're spiking properly and fighting properly, because if they get initiated on the wrong way or don't have clean initiation, since they're a utility-full team fight team of 5, whereas TSM has brought mostly just overloads of damage, it's going to be extremely interesting.
It's been a while for Reggie on Zed. We'll see how he works with that. I'm really liking the mouth fight coming from Nien. Way back.
He's had a lot of success on it.
A lot of success. When he started, it was kind of like, when he was talking about, I have a lot of potential. I know there is so much potential for me to possibly be one of the best top laners, and Malphite, his first few games didn't show that. It showed like it was going to be kind of a hindrance and a little bit of a troublesome, or be a trouble to learn top lane. But he came through huge, and MLG showed that. It was really the live events that needed to bring it out.
Exactly. He lives for the stage as well. I mean, Nien typically steps up in big moments, even though I remember the promotion tournament when he was still on Team Marn. He stepped up in that tournament when they ended up losing Corki. He ended up backdooring in Nexus.
Yep.
The games against CLG specifically have really been times for Nien to shine throughout this season. We think to MLG, where we had the Elise triple kill that saved the game. And even his Malphite games against TSM have been spectacular. Big Fat OP will generally black out the screen as he's home guarding or teleporting in, and he will get a clean ultimate on exactly who he wants. It's a good pick against Twitch. I just wonder if CLG has enough damage overall in their team composition.
It'll be a little bit longer of a fight, like you said. They're going to have to position very well without that much damage, but then again, if they can dodge the crescendo, that's the maximum amount of crowd control really coming from TeamSoloMid right now. So if they can position around that, but you can say that for both teams. Position around this, around that. It's going to work better.
Position properly. That's usually how the game works, right? And I just actually, as we're getting into this game right now, we haven't talked about the TSM team composition very much.
Not much. But we are on to the Rift. We are into our LCS matchups here. We're going to see who really meets the end of the road here.
Yeah, and it has to happen for one of them. That's just the way the tournament works. And these teams have positioned themselves with fairly poor, based on their standards, regular season so far. And they now have to dig themselves out of this hole in the playoffs. And who better to do it against than each other, because there's such a giant rivalry with these guys.
The last time CLG did something like this, by keeping themselves in vision in the middle there, they went for a late invade on blue and then tried to get Doublelift that kill up top, early kill. But it failed, and they weren't able to win that game. We'll see if they go through it here, because they base a lot off getting Doublelift that quick first blood.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be the same with Doublelift on Ashe, though, because Ashe could start off with a couple kills.
That's true.
And then still be Ashe. He's not like he can roam around the map like a Vayne and assassinate the enemy carry. If he's fighting Dyrus or Reginald, there's only so much Ashe can really do in those fights.
Just waiting to see CLG Gaming now sitting in top Tri-Brush. Looks like Dyrus will be backing as well. They're trying to call the lane swap here, or possibly just put everybody in middle. No, they're going to send Dyrus bottom just to try and call that one out right now.
Yeah, and right now it is defensive, to say the least, from both of these guys. Against a Zyra, where CLG has the control right now, if TSM would have tried to do a 5-man group, they would risk effectively walking into a giant 5-man grasping roots, and I think that's the big reason we haven't seen many deep wards from TSM specifically.
See, as they begin where the junglers decide to go, we are going to have the swap into the lanes, which actually caused them to match up evenly. The AD carries and supports will be in that top lane, and as we did say, we haven't talked about TeamSoloMid too much on that composition. What are they looking for with what they've brought to the table? Yeah,
so right now the lanes are standard. We're not expecting too much early unless they get extremely aggressive right here, but TSM has an interesting thing where generally teams that have success with Rumble lock people down inside Rumble's ultimate. So that's why we've seen Rumble with the Zyra Ashe oftentimes in the past, but really all TSM has to lock down is just that crescendo. So Dyrus and X Special have to be in such sync, and CLG needs to make sure they spread out to avoid that damage, because other than that, TSM is about individual damage. They have a bunch of duelers and skirmishers, in a sense, where they have Zed and Twitch, who are amazing in that situation, as well as Elise. And then Rumble's just in there for Dyrus for that little bit of teamfight presence, but it needs to be worked with the rest of the team in order for it to succeed.
We'll have to see what Reginald can do. We always see the Zeds becoming huge at that level 6. Not able to really take down an Orianna, so we'll have to see if Reginald can get his roam on at that point. We're only 3 minutes into this one, so the junglers should be presenting themselves quite soon. And it's like you said, it's going to be slower. With the matchup lanes, you don't get your 3v1 tower dive, so both of these teams maybe now in the favor of CLG with the longer games.
Yeah, we'll see how this one goes, because CLG is not necessarily one to create the action, but because they have so much utility loaded amongst all of their lanes, I feel like they can set up some very well-coordinated Nocturne ultimates once Big Fat LP hits level 6. Anywhere they want to go, they can effectively get 4 people, and they can lock down to make sure it lands, as long as Doublelift or Chouster leads with the Zyra route or the Ash Arrow. That's why this combo has picked up so much steam, and that's why CLG has decided to pick up this combo.
So intense in this early part of the game. They're not even trying to poke each other while farming. They're not even poking each other for extra damage right now.
You can even feel it in the crowd right now. There is a lot of tension in this game. They're kind of just waiting for the first big moment to happen, because there is just too much on the line for both of these teams. Not making it to Worlds is unacceptable for both of these teams.
And we've said it before, you know, these teams come from winning histories, and when that winning just stops, it's kind of hard to figure out why, and we've seen that happen to both teams here. They're trying to get that back, recuperate that organization. 4.5 minutes in, and the junglers still doing their own thing on the camps.
Yeah, well, even just to talk about CLG a little bit, they've been having significant roster turnover both of these splits. In the spring split, we saw Afromu on the team. Hotshot was still playing. And then they did yet another makeover for this next split. And yes, it's not surprising when you recognize that this is now the 6th seed coming in, because a team that has that much roster turnover and change, you can tell they've been trying to identify their problems, and they actually have identified a lot of their problems fairly successfully. That's something CLG has always been good at. It's just a matter of actually executing on your solutions that they've planned.
CLG playing a little bit stronger in that top lane, possibly want to go back soon, maybe get more wards up so they can be more aggressive. Theirs aren't going to run out anytime in the near future, but we do have a test in the bottom lane. Odd One tries to go for a gank, but is forced to back.
Yeah, Odd One really tries the first gank, so to speak, but he's been mainly farming up a Storm. You know, level 5 on Elise, only 5 minutes and 30 seconds in, keeping pace with Big Fat LP. Both of these guys are generally just racing each other right now for experience. The Odd One is typically known for extremely strong counter ganking and knowledge of where the enemy jungler is, but if all Big Fat LP is doing is farming the jungle, Odd One's not able to set up counter ganks. He's mainly just waiting for Big Fat LP to hit 6, and then he's going to try to predict him.
We see Link taking into consideration that aggression Reginald has and being on the assassin of Zed, picking up 2 Dorns, keep himself a little bit healthier so he can stay in that fight. 6 minutes into this, there's really no gold lead for either team, as Dyrus and Yen really the only ones trying to hit each other, but it's a wet noodle fight right now.
Yeah, and I actually feel like the TSM lane of Wild Turtle and X Special is doing pretty well against Doublelift and Chouster so far. Just because Zyra and Ashe both outrange Turtle and X Special, so they generally have the poke advantage in this lane, unless TSM decides to all in. And since TSM hasn't been doing any all-inning, the fact that they are effectively even in minions, if we keep into account the 5 extra minions that CLG has in their wave that Wild Turtle will be able to clean up later, is quite an accomplishment by X Special and Wild Turtle.
When you look at everybody on the team, and never more have you thought, oh, level 6, where are you? Just the crescendo to come out, but then you have the Stranglethorns and the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. So we'll see Doublelift and Chouster actually go back a little before hitting 6, so possibly get that damage in as soon as they do.
Yeah, so that's just basically so they get the item advantage when they decide to force the fight. If X Special and Wild Turtle decide to stick around a little extra long, it means when CLG does start the fight with that arrow, CLG will have that BF sword advantage on the AD carries, which will be enough to make up for Ash's kind of, I would suppose, weak damage when you compare it to Twitch and his crazy expunge damage early on in the game.
Right.
Or TSM, it basically just forces them to go back and shop at the same time, which is what TSM is doing now.
TSM getting their semi-deep wards in, not as much that deep with the first tier turrets up, but Reginald looking to be able to go aggressive himself, and these are pink wards being put down They have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, they need to make sure that they're not denying vision, or that they are denying vision in the right places. But honestly, we've seen CLG play this whole split. This is even a little bit slower than usual. They will pick their spots, but then they will go. And Big Fat LP in particular has been someone who's willing to do that. There's been games for him on Nocturne where he's level 11 before he even uses his first Nocturne ultimate, because he does not waste. Actually, especially against TSM, tends to wait until Reginald does something, and then oftentimes just, even if he's ulting elsewhere, just blacks out his vision to kind of create more chaos on that team, since TSM is so reliant on Reginald's calls and really just Reginald's mood in a lot of these games.
If he can stay doing well, then the calls keep coming is usually the way. It's even come from his mouth as well. Things can get chaotic when things go quiet. 8.5 minutes into this game, we can also see that these wards, as I said before, being placed deep because of that Nocturne. You can't place regular wards down when you play against a quasi-global ultimate there. The unstoppable force down. He comes from the lane gank. They're locking down Dyrus. He tries to put on the scrap shield. He can get some abilities out. He's not choked up yet. A few more. 200. The scrap shield goes down. Not enough time, and it's going to be Big Fat for first blood.
But
picks up the kill. Retribution for Odd One. The other lanes stay calm.
Dyrus had to display a lot of patience in order to get that kill eventually to the Odd One. He had to sit on his equalizer pretty much as long as possible before flashing away, so that when Odd One came in, he could convert the extra kill. And that was the long wait for CLG to go in for a gank. Yet the Odd One was close enough. He was running up the lane as that gank happened because he recognized that it was about to come. He got the counter gank, and it ends up evening the game, so to speak. Both junglers are the ones who got the kills. The top laners got the assists. So really, they traded some gold back and forth.
Everything being done right by both teams, even if it was wrong. 12.3 to 12.3, and 1 kill on the board with 0 of those structures taken down. It seems like it's almost impenetrable with the hard hats these guys have on right now. We see the BF sword already into the hands of Double Lift, probably shooting straight for that Infinity Edge, but I'd say Fall Turtle's going to be doing the same thing here to maximize damage.
Yeah, it's interesting how a lot of Twitches have been going for the Blade of the Ruin King Rush so they can get up close to people and assassinate them. And specifically against an Ashe, that's what you want to be able to pull off. But Wild Turtle also recognizes the game he's in and the team he is playing against. And it's a little strange because if he's going for that Infinity Edge build on Twitch, it actually generally means he's going a little bit more for the late game. Whereas TSM thrives when they play short. I think he just mainly got the BF sword so he could directly match what Double Lift had purchased.
This game definitely not looking to be short. We have the tier already stacking onto Link. A little bit of a meetup down at the Dragon. Make sure the wards are clear. Going to be eyes on that quite soon. We're 10 minutes in. I'd say about 3 minutes past when we should have seen that Dragon aggression.
It's crazy. And you mentioned earlier, the turrets haven't even really taken damage. All of the turrets in this game are still extremely healthy. And it's almost we need to see a giant fight before we'll see the turrets, or we need to see someone actually go for Dragon, because that's when we'll see an actual turret exchange. Even in the top lane there, Dyrus just pushed it up, and instead of deciding to do a bit of turret damage, he immediately ran down because he was getting a little suspicious that no one was up there, and he wants to make sure that TSM has some Dragon control.
I was going to say, you know, for TSM to go down there and not have a teleport on the top lane, it kind of hurts them, but we'll have to see. They're going to have to switch it up and keep that AD carry and support matched up for that aggression. Reginald going in for some damage, but nothing going to happen here. It looks like that Dragon is going to be danced.
Yeah, and Yen had used his teleport previously in lane, but it's up in 20 seconds, so this timing could not be better for TSM. Knowing Yen is top lane,
wow.
If they time the teleport, which they absolutely could have, since they would have seen him teleport back into the lane, they would know Yen wouldn't be coming down. And especially with all the pink wards that TSM placed around that area, they pick up a well-deserved Dragon.
It's fully pressured out as well. That was made many steps ahead, and it's an awesome thing to see that Dragon didn't just come because they wanted to do it. It's because they set it up with the lane swap a few minutes earlier, and it played right into their hands. It's what they needed, and now a 700 gold lead in their favor. But once this first turret goes down, I think we'll start to see a little bit more invading and a little bit more of what we're used to.
But when will that first turret?
When will that first turret go down?
27 minutes. No, really. Let's take a look at some of the builds, though, because Link has done something slightly curious for what he's normally done. He's went tier and double Thorns. I think what he wants to do eventually is get a Zhonya's.
There's a dive team on him.
Exactly, because what a lot of Oriannas will go for a Chalice or an Athene's Unholy Grail, but that wouldn't necessarily work against Reginald Zed because he'd then have a kill threat. So in order to still be able to build the Zhonya's but not run into mana problems, he had to start with a tier. And the reason he has the double Thorns is since he's not ready for his Zhonya's yet, he needs a little bit of extra health against Reginald to make it so Reginald can't just decide to kill him and go for it, even though it's still pretty risky, especially once Reginald hits level 11 for that rank 2 death mark.
He's quite a bit of ways off. He has the 2 daggers if he wishes to purchase them for that Blade of the Rune King, and that's when Zed gets really big with that, adding that burst to your combo. So we'll have to see where he decides to do. Looks like him and Link are just going to tango it in mid, and Dyrus and Nien meeting back in the top lane here. As Dyrus has to be a little bit more careful. He is still trying to ward deep, but they're going to be lane ganks every time.
Yeah, Dyrus hasn't done amazingly in that lane. He's getting ganked again.
Gets a hit up this time. Dyrus with no summoners. Actually, he has the summoners. He's going to save them. And he goes down on that one, knowing there'll be more help in the next fight.
There was no odd one to save him that time. And Reginald's then going elsewhere to try and make a play. Maybe TSM's going to try something on this turret, or maybe just brute force it down because CLG has pulled away.
We've seen Rumbles be targeted, and we still see Rumbles come back. The ultimate is huge to have in the fight. If Dyrus is keeping his head in the game, TeamSoloMid still doing well, but CounterLogic Gaming is trying to pressure their advantages, and it's something that teams don't do often.
Yeah, and I've seen CLG pick on Dyrus in a lot of the games they've matched up against him, and this is, in a lot of times, it's kind of to babysit Nien and make sure he can get going. But even before those ganks were happening, Nien was really holding his own against Rumble, which is surprising because Rumble is somewhat of a counter matchup to Nien. Reginald wants to go on Link here.
Oh.
Yeah, he needed to flash right there because the odd one was coming around from the other side. And if Link wouldn't have flashed over that wall, even though it did seem a little premature, worked out perfectly. Otherwise, odd one would have cornered him, and the flash would not have saved Link.
Looks like these guys are getting real aggressive in the bottom lane. We haven't really seen an Enchanted Crystal Arrow yet, so they are holding on to that until it comes up with a big kill. CLG just making sure it can happen, kind of like what Meteor says. I don't come out of the jungle unless I know I can gank.
Yeah, I mean, think about Big Fat LP's game so far. 2 Nocturne ultimates, 2 kills. They gave up a death, but the cooldown on that thing is monstrous early on in the game, even now. That gank was a while ago. It's 162 seconds with his cooldown reduction already. He's got 60 seconds left before he can gank again, so the pacing of these ganks is slow for CLG, but they're getting away with it because TSM is not pushing the pace whatsoever. We could see the odd one going around and trying to gank a bunch in between Big Fat LP's paranoias, but instead he's kind of sitting back and trying to counter gank it. We could see Reginald roaming around and trying to gank bottom lane to force Doublelift to use Ash Arrows, but they're just allowing him to sit on it and effectively out-farm Wild Turtle. Now the odd one might try to get a gank in between the ultimate timer, but Nien is already prepared by sitting in the turret.
This is going to be tough for TeamSoloMid to really get CounterLogic Gaming into a fight they want, unless it's those pickoffs. It's a good thing they have Zed, because you're asking them to stand in that crescendo. You're asking them to stand in a Rumble ultimate. With Nocturne, you can start that a lot earlier. You can start that fight. So TSM looking to get more towards that mid-game, 25 minutes where the turrets are down and they can start pressuring a team as they're guarding something here.
And right now their objective-focused game is getting something, but there's the arrow. It hits Dyrus. Will they follow up?
There's the unstoppable force. It hits 2 at 3. Odd one goes up into repel. Very low, 100 HP. They're going to turn this one back. A great command shockwave onto 3 members of TeamSoloMid. Big Fat going down. Ignite is on. He will stay. No, he goes down along with another kill. Special.
Oh man, the 80 carries were about to arrive, but we really saw there a couple of things about CLG and TSM's team comp. CLG had an overload of utility there, so much lockdown, but still, even with a long-range Ash Arrow bullseyeing Dyrus and Nien following up right afterwards, they didn't even kill him. They didn't get the odd one either because their damage was a little bit lackluster in that fight. They still get away for one and defend their turret, but it doesn't really tell us much about who's winning this one. It just tells us or confirms that CLG needs to use their utility properly.
There we go. The bottom turret on that purple side is down, but the mid turret has now been dropped. A great amount of map vision is opened up here and closed off, actually, for TeamSoloMid. So CLG can start that roam a little bit more, maybe start to deny and get those deeper wards in. That's the game they need. Like I said, with that coming in, that strategy of TSM wanting to CLG to bunch up once they have those wards, it's going to be easy to dodge it.
Yeah, and I feel actually with the pacing of this game, 2 kills to 3, gold still extremely close, TSM obviously getting that 1 dragon. CLG is feeling fairly comfortable right now. I don't know if they should be feeling comfortable, but it seems like they are feeling comfortable. Basically because they think that their team composition is vastly superior late game, since I feel like the amount of team fight control you have as the game gets later and later becomes more and more beneficial, which I think is why CLG, Nien keeps being in the top lane. CLG just keeps kind of waiting around while TSM takes these dragons, because CLG is comfortable with the small advantages that TSM is accumulating.
And I think CLG is just trying to pressure that utility fact of their team. A static Shiv after the BF sword on Ashe coming in, so Doublelift's looking to help push those lanes even more and be a nuisance so the team can get it on the map. These guys are really looking to put pressure on TSM.
Or at least they're trying to fight some of it back. The last thing CLG wants to do is lose their 3 outer turrets, where they would then get constrained and significantly outfarmed. As long as CLG can keep their outer turrets for the most part up, or even take down TSM's outer turrets, it will allow them to prolong the game as long as they want.
And you see the ping there on the turret as they're losing top. Actually, Rumble, Dyrus going to the bottom lane, so they will not trade a turret on this, but he may try to get the kill. Dyrus has been hurt throughout this game, but we've said before, Rumbles can get their kills, misses the shockwave, and he takes out Ling!
Just straight up ran him down with Rumble there. Link tried to get the backward shockwave. Of course, TSM chants are coming out as well. He could not get it to work. And he gets a kill. That's a great comeback for Dyrus, because he has been struggling significantly so far in this game.
That was a very good call by the entire team. He was pinged to the middle turret along with Wild Turtle, but Wild went and Dyrus made that call on his own. He said, I'm getting this kill bottom. So that was great communication by TeamSoloMid. And they got the turret out of it in mid to counteract the turret in the top lane. Oddman grabbing up the blue as the gold shows 28,000 to about 26,000. So that 2K gold lead, 3-3 in kills, that's really, I don't think that's going to go crazy in anybody's favor this game with the amount of skill on both teams.
No, the gold lead, aside from about 150 gold, is about the 2 dragons.
Yeah, the 2 dragons.
That TSM has been able to get. And CLG hasn't really gotten anything back from those 2 dragons. Normally, you'll see someone trade a dragon for some map positioning, because you'll see, but that's just not what CLG's been doing. TSM's been taking dragon while CLG's top lane is pushed in already, and then Nien just kind of goes off and farms it, which is one of the ways Nien has been able to stay in that lane with Dyrus, or at least come close to his farm in what is essentially a counter lane, Rumble versus Malphite, is I feel like Nien has done a lot of uncontested farming, where Dyrus has been trying to help TSM control objectives. That was a little bit of a love tap, I'd have to say.
Just back and forth. Everybody thinks the ults are down, but all ults are up. That command shockwave coming back up. Teleport is on as well.
It would be time for CLG to make a move again.
Trying to draw this one in. They see it special coming from the side. With that Oracle's denying so much vision, I don't think they like their chances there.
No. Not at all. They didn't trust Doublelift to land an arrow, and even if they did, the damage potential of full tank Nocturne and Sunfire Cape, no Magic Pen Malphite, isn't enough. CLG kind of all has to be together, or wait for Link to pick up his either Zhonya's or Rabadon's Death Cap, depending on what he's going for. He may just go straight offense for a Death Cap, because Reginald is yet to threaten him, and he almost needs to, because CLG is so low on damage overall. Maybe now they're roaming up if we got some kind of fight. With TSM going in, it's going to happen.
Have to know they're being rotated down right now. Nien is ignited. It looks like he will go down in the end. He will live from that engagement. Big Fat takes down the odd one. They're going on to Reginald. He's slowed and exhausted. A few more attacks. Who are they going to give it to? That's just the question. The Dustbringer, the double kill for Big Fat.
Wow. So that's the utility coming in for them. Almost waiting for TSM to go in that top lane. Nien baited that one out pretty much perfectly. That's the supposed benefit of the tank Malphite as opposed to the Magic Pen Malphite, is he can take a couple hits as the rest of CLG went up there to support the fight and pick up 2 kills.
You have to consider your engagement. If you've been trying it for 15 seconds, it's probably a good idea to stop trying it.
Yeah, and you can just see in this replay once again, Nien barely got away with the sliver, and since TSM had exhausted all of their damage resources on the Malphite, there was no fighting back that double kill from Big Fat. What is interesting, though, is Big Fat is potentially one of the worst people to get the double kill on.
As a tank?
And specifically during the season, Chouster and Big Fat OP, as far as junglers and supports go, were the best at not taking kills if you compare their percentage of kills versus their assists, because all of the kills on CLG go to the solo laners and Doublelift. But this has not been the case for them, because Big Fat OP needed to secure that one, since essentially Reginald was going to get away if he didn't.
And to get away, we actually see Dyrus kind of formulating the buy for the Rylai's first for engagement and disengage as well, as they just saw how that last fight played out.
And with that Rylai's, he's probably going for the Rylai's Leandries.
And a nice dodge. Little dodge.
Nice little quick feet right there.
That's a good one.
With that Leandries, there's not much for TSM to actually keep people in Dyrus' equalizer. So with the extra little bit of slowing, for him at least, is going to be keeping them in the equalizer for himself. He's got to just kind of fend for himself with that one.
5-3 the kills here. And our first LCS matchup. Well, like we said, one of these teams is the end of the road. They're not going to make it into that playoff matchup. 5-3 means that CLG has not worried about, like we said, the Dragons, not so much about the turrets, but really figuring out where the lanes can be pushed and how to keep a slight advantage. They're down in gold, but they're definitely able to win the engagements they've had.
Yeah, it's been, even though a fairly slow game, a very measured game.
Yeah.
I'd say almost by both teams. They're trying to not make the wrong decision as opposed to taking risks in most of these scenarios, which is why the kill score is low, and I feel like why CLG is sitting back right here knowing they're down the Enchanted Crystal Arrow from Ashe. But a Dragon is up, and it might be time for CLG to stop giving these ones up because they've already given away 2.
Looks like they do want it. The Oracles on Chouster is helping them to at least clear out their side of the jungle, but if TSM can get positioning here, they can absolutely push them out. It looks like they are trying to get themselves in the den to see where CLG will position themselves.
Yeah, this is potentially dangerous. The arrow is coming back up in a few seconds, and this could be a fight CLG wants to take. TSM's going to try to position themselves kind of around the back. That's why you can see Dyrus sitting behind the Dragon Pit, because TSM wanted that initiation to happen. Dyrus would have came around the back and killed CLG. Now CLG's making the executive decision to trade a turret, or at least pressure it.
They are going to straight for it. It's going to be Dragon going into the odd one. He smites that down. It looks like they're going to come from the backside. They know the odd one is on the top, so he's trying to give them a place to escape, a place to go. Will they be able to do it? And TSM doesn't want it.
This is very tense right now because CLG is on the wrong side of the map if they don't want to fight TSM right now. They're trying to get that arrow down. I mean, if they arrow Dyrus, he's still going to get an equalizer out. It's hard to find a priority arrow target right now, and both teams are honestly scared of what's going to happen here. How long are they going to look at each other?
The sides of the map are pitch black.
Let's
for
get rid of the
counter
minions
logic.
first.
Okay, it looks like TSM is going to take CLG's base.
Yeah, and now TSM can just turn it around on CLG.
All right.
And the minions are pushing the side lanes for TSM as well. So the longer they wait in this, the better it is for TSM.
Leagueception. We'll see what they can get.
LCS playoffs right here. This is this tactic we have not seen before right now. But honestly, both of these teams are trapped in this position, as ridiculous as it seems.
Dyrus still trying to charge up. What's it going to be? Where's the Ashe arrow? Where's the unstoppable force? Like I said, TSM has to have CLG. Sit in that. There's the arrow going through all the way to the back line. Does this give TSM what they want?
They know the arrow's down, so if they want to initiate, they could. But think of the tools and who has them right now. CLG has the choice.
Whoa, CLG's going out of bounds here.
Yeah, that's off limits. TSM too. They figured your guys gonna leave, we're gonna leave.
All right.
But the reason that everything dissipated after that arrow riv is because TSM's only initiation is X Special charging the lines and crescendoing, and TSM is just waiting to counter-initiate. That's why they're playing so measured right now, and that's why they're slowly pushing this turret.
It was a great job putting themselves through the jungle, causing CLG to have to go all the way around, which means they may not get this turret, but they've prepped it for a little bit of damage, and that's really all these teams can hope for right now, because they're not giving an inch anywhere.
Not really at all. I mean, look at this. The gold is still within 2,000. Doublelift, by the way, is doing his normal farm right now. 8,700 gold. That is tops in the game, but not by that much. Because Reginald and Wild Turtle are sticking close. 8,500 and 8,400 as well. Really, CLG wants the 6 items on Doublelift's Ashe, so he can then become that damage threat, loaded in with all of CLG's utility, and kind of take advantage of the game here. We're already 26 minutes in, and not too much has happened, which I think does actually favor CLG, since as we saw in that last little mid lane dance, they hold all the cards as far as initiations go.
I like this. The pickup of the locket. Usually have not seen a locket after the change within the Aegis, but now with that pickup, it's going to help them out a little bit. You have ending killers. You have like Expunge. You have that death mark coming in from Reginald, and that locket, it's going to be pretty helpful. Yeah,
so the locket of the Iron Solar being picked up by Big Fat LP really fits his style. And he also needed to build it because he got the kills. So he had to give something back. He had to give something back to CLG as a team. I don't feel like CLG would switch styles just because Big Fat picked up kills. He wouldn't suddenly do a Meteos Nocturne build and go Ravenous Hydra, Last Whisper. But he just decided to go tank because that's what he does, and he's not playing a different Nocturne style no matter what.
And it does look like Link is gone for that Rabadons, as you said. Usually we see him, if he's a Karthus player, to be the catalyst, the tier player, the one to go for that late game. But it's a power Orianna this game, and you can play it that way.
Well, he's still going for the late game because he did build that early tier.
Yep.
And he's sitting on a Seeker's Arm Guard, so he's going to get Zhonya's as well. But because the game is quite slow in development, he hasn't had to worry about the scattered split push Reginald Zed yet, which is why he's been able to go for ability power right now. So immediately, this gives CLG a bit of a damage boost in fights because they don't need the Zhonya's utility yet to deal with Reginald. At the moment, they think Nien can handle him.
A few more pink wards than usual. CLG feels like the jungle is where that fight's going to happen. 3 pink wards alone surround that red buff and Wraith area. I don't think TSM even wants anything to do up there because they know Baron's not going to happen, and they want that turret.
Yeah, this is TSM being really cautious. And it's just, of course it would be CLG that picks the team that has all the abilities to initiate and then not use them because they don't think it's time yet, which is the big reason this game is kind of slowed down.
Fast mobility boots coming out for Xpecial. I wouldn't say fast, but earlier than Chouster on his second tier boots to get these initiations down, making sure all the vision is cleared at least on the bottom half of the map. But it is power in numbers for these guys right now, and nobody is leaving the hip of another.
No, they're sticking around, and specifically, we're at that point in the game now. Even though the turret drops are a little bit off between teams, CLG's missing their outer 3. And TSM's missing 2 in the middle, which is actually a little bit more vulnerable. And it's why they're sticking so close together right now, because if they're going places alone, it's actually exceedingly dangerous. For CLG, it's dangerous because Reginald has the assassination potential from Zed, whereas for TSM, it's dangerous because CLG has the potential to catch with an Ash Arrow and so much team fight utility so they can find odd man fights. If they find a 5v3, CLG could take it. Whereas if TSM couldn't take it, or TSM found that opportunity, they couldn't do the same.
Let's see what opportunities they can start to create for themselves. 5 pink wards scattered across the CLG jungle. That security system hopefully getting them some kills here, but TeamSoloMid is playing so cautious that it's really just CLG dumping into money knowing that their jungle's clear.
Yeah, and I think they did a little dance. The dragon's up again. So now we're going to see the mid lane dragon dance again, but this time it's actually CLG who's putting themselves in the pit instead of TSM, which means if TSM wants to run at them, CLG either gives up the dragon and goes in a bad spot, or they create the fight.
This is what I was talking about. This is that bunch up. Here comes Xpecial from the outside. He's looking for the perfect crescendo on this fight. They are all going to the backside. Can they follow Reginald? Oddwood repels into the fight as well, but they're getting blown up without the backup of their team. The unstoppable force is weighted by Nien. He gets himself in a dragon, but that's not such a good spot to be right now. Going down is angry too. Wild Turtle. Dragon is getting pissed right now. Double kill coming out for a Turtle. Looks like that's going to end the fight, and CLG comes out on top. Get a little retribution on that Dragon for Nien kill.
So that's the fight we're waiting for there, Riv. CLG pulls themselves back in gold. Let's just see how this one happened. They didn't kill Dyrus, which is actually why they're saving most of their initiation. They waited for the counter from TSM. You see what TSM was waiting for, or CLG was waiting for, is they wanted Reginald, the odd one, to dive so everyone could peel. They got the Zyra ultimate down as the disengage, and they piled all of their shields onto Doublelift, which allowed him to be strong enough near the end. Also, look at how late that shockwave was, because they found the opportunity, and Link wasn't looking for a shockwave for the majority of that fight. He was looking to shield Doublelift and then shockwave when the turn came, which is why CLG won that fight and why Doublelift got 3 kills.
Doublelift, even with that static shiv, means he's not getting the maximum critical potential out of the IE and the Phantom, but they still want him. The Ash Arrow was down, and they smothered him instantly, knowing he could still put out some damage, but like we said, he's not the hyper carry that Doublelift usually plays on his champions.
Not yet, but I mean, based on the way they decided to play that fight, that's what CLG wants him to become.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what TSM is playing towards stopping. Reginald did not think about going for anyone else, and honestly,
that was pretty deep.
He couldn't. Going for Nien, not a good idea. Too much armor right now. Zhonya's on Link. Big Fat LP doesn't do any damage. He actually has to go for double lift, which is why CLG's team composition has felt so comfortable about taking the game to this point now, since we're 33 minutes in and really just had our first big team fight. But I feel like those team fights only get better for CLG as long as they can find those 5v5s that are generally on their terms.
I had to play a little bit of that kiting game just to get that fight in their favor, but they were able to do it in the end. Very good on holding unstoppable force. It's something you kind of, you want to help everybody right off the bat, but he actually waited to get a good 3-shot down. CLG trying to take control of the map here as they are found out by the odd one, so it looks like TSM is going to try to dictate a little push mid here.
CLG has to display so much patience in this game because they have all the initiation cards in their deck, and they get to decide when to play them.
On to Dyrus
right now!
Commands Shockwave, the crowd control, one after the other. Gets the scrap shot down, he's completely out of the fear range. And it looks like they're going to be able to back out of this one, 2 limping away.
So this really shows the lack of initiation that TSM possesses, because CLG used the majority of their initiation skills, aside from Nien's ultimate. And then Dyrus took the brunt of that and still got a pretty much perfect equalizer down. But there's no way TSM could actually follow up on all those blown skills from CLG and such a great equalizer by Dyrus, because they're really at the mercy of CLG going in the wrong place. Now that they know CLG's ultimates are all down, maybe TSM can decide to pressure some things, but because the gold is so close, they're really not going to go for it.
Trying to really create their crowd control with utility within their items. They don't have enough to, use one on somebody like a champion that comes in and then have it next. They have to have it, like I said, all in that compact spot, which is making it so hard for them to get their fights after that laning phase.
Yeah, and we're going to have to watch Wild Turtle in these upcoming fights as well, and whether or not Nien can shut him down, because he is putting together a very dangerous, fully offensive build. He's got the 3 best damage items that he could have right now. This is the late game Twitch he has been building towards. Nien's not there. They're forcing things right now, and they might get this Baron before CLG looks.
The teleport is up, but they know Dyrus on the other side. What? 9-5 at 34 minutes in, and TSM grabs a Baron with no contest.
Wait, go! And they just decide to go for the Baron, but it was calculated in the sense that CLG had just waited for their cooldowns to cycle, and they haven't been a team that just goes. CLG has been hesitating and planning and being very strategic about everywhere they go this game, which meant it was the perfect time for TSM to actually go in for the Baron. They had the safety in the sense that they had cleared the wards, but CLG let their wards drop, and TSM just took advantage of the situation. CLG wasn't necessarily thinking TSM would be that decisive in going for the Baron, but they were wrong.
Not something that should happen 35 minutes into a game.
Generally not.
At least somebody to go in and contest that and see what's happening. TSM is now just going to be able to push so much harder with so much more confidence.
But here's going to be the test. Is TSM going to be able to turret dive? And are they going to be able to get through all of the kiting and holding of CLG? We saw the Dragon fight where it was a 2,000 gold advantage for TSM. It went wildly in CLG's favor. Even with the Baron, you're talking about a turret dive at this point against a team who had just beaten you in a previous fight. Maybe not for TSM.
Thought they were going to try to get a cheeky engagement with double lift being seen backing, but firing the arrow from just in the back line and then coming in. TSM, I think they were like, we don't know where double lift is, so we don't know where that arrow is coming from. Back off as well. Everybody really bolsters up. They're looking for super slow. 2 Rylais for TSM now.
Yeah, that's a little curious in a sense. Odd One has went for a very offensive-based Elise build, which hadn't generally been his style in the past, Just the Golem Spirit, and then pretty much full offense. They're getting the Rylais, as you say, because they don't have other crowd control. They only really have the Crescendo. Reginald and Dyrus only have what you'd call soft crowd control, because they can slow people a little bit. They're even though they had made that great play for Get a Baron, I don't feel like TSM has a plan for really ending this game, aside from getting so strong they can just brute force through CLG's base. But against CLG's team composition, that might not be a possibility. I almost feel like TSM should try to get something going with this Baron. But what? All they'd have is a Flash Crescendo from X Special, which is yet to be used this game.
That's the one thing CLG does have, and they know how to do, and that's Turtle. Especially with the static Shiv buy, having an Orianna, having Dustbringer. TSM's not getting anywhere with this Baron other than a few things in the jungle. But then CLG is also losing their lead.
Yeah, TSM is getting back their gold lead that they lost in the previous Dragon fight. the Baron, plus the Dragon, plus all the extra jungle camps they're able to take from CLG, are pulling them back a little bit and really just waiting for Wild Turtle to get monstrous. And I think that is probably the way TSM plans on taking over this game, or at least having a chance.
And this turret was hit about 10 minutes ago. Looks like they returned
not even close
to take it down. That teleport is up. The teleport coming in. It's going in just behind him as well. It's going to be Big Fat going down. He's hiding in the bush. And it looks like they're going to be able to continue this one on. Dyrus is the lockdown.
Reggie is waiting to go.
Where is the damage? There's the crescendo. They lock it down. That's what they wanted. A huge command shockwave. The health bars are just bloody red. Ottawa versus Doublelift. Ottawa's ignited. Wild Turtle comes up. And the ace coming in for TeamSoloMid.
And TSM waited 38 minutes for that, and it just erupted. That was CLG having an error in judgment. The turret head went down. TSM still had Baron, and even though they landed amazing Malphite Orianna combo, what are they doing against a TSM team with Baron? Look at these death timers. TSM might actually look to take down Nexus turrets here. Look at the timer.
One Nexus turret going to be going down at the outer. Can get himself on that as well. 38-30, 12-10, and an unexpected ace in the bottom lane. TeamSoloMid uses a Baron to go for the win in game one.
What kind of ending is this? If you're a